like clock. I can't stop. Fuck around, make my 40 pop.
In the wise words of Plies, I ran off on the plug twice. He's steady calling, I ain't calling back. In the next episode, the only thing that Team 7 and Mujino are going to be doing is running off on the plug, quite literally. When we talk about a whole bunch of people, I mean the whole village is going to be after Team 7 for some sort of fake prize money after killing somebody that's super rich. We have to understand it's going to be a very difficult task for Team 7 to actually now acquire the Hashirama cell, and that's exactly what the spoiler said. Now, without further ado, I do want to talk about the spoilers real quick and get that out the way and give my opinions about what should actually happen in the next episode. But regardless, episode 162, the title's going to be Escape the Encirclement. Now, into the actual paragraph, it says, Boruto and his comrades were dragged into a ransacking incident that transpired at the prisoner's castle. Not only were they considered to be the culprits, but they also ended up getting pursued by some scoundrels from the Land of Silence. Even though Boruto and his comrades wanted to capture the true perpetrators of the ransacking by any means necessary, they kept being obstructed by the scoundrels who continued to attack and descend upon them one after another, and so they weren't able to pursue the real culprits. With Boruto's quick-wittedness, they were able to temporarily get out of the crisis. However, even more trouble arose, and then they got completely surrounded by the scoundrels. Boruto and the others were ultimately cut off from their escape route. So basically, in shorter terms, as I said earlier, I ran off on a plug twice. He's steady calling, I ain't calling back. At this particular point, Team 7, their whole mission is completely bungled because they right now are extremely trapped. Now, one thing that I do want to point out about these spoilers is the fact that they didn't necessarily talk about Sada and Mujino. At this particular point, their whole mission was to actually protect Boruto and Konohamaru. At this particular point, that's probably out the window. Sada and Mujino, they better people than me, because at this particular point, I'd have probably just left the village and say, yo, they dead. But it is definitely going to be interesting to see exactly how Sada and Mujino handle this situation. Are they going to overtly try to help Team 7? Are they going to come out and make it be known that they are actually also from the Hidden Leaf Village as well? Are they going to try to keep a low profile, or are they going to subtly help them and attempt to give them extra passageways to potentially escape? Now, I do want to point this out. It's going to be very difficult if the actual perpetrators do stay into the Land of Silence. We understand, of course, they're probably not from the Land of Silence. Regardless, they have to actually go back to their actual village with the Hashirama cell. But either way, it would be a smart idea for that team to actually chill out in the Land of Silence, just so they could throw Team 7 and potentially make a much safer escape with the Hashirama cell back to their village. Another thing to look out for is not only Team 7, but other people who possibly understand who exactly has the Hashirama cells. Over the prior couple of episodes, I did talk about some other teams that are in the Land of Silence whose main objectives are going to be the Hashirama cells. Do they also know that this team with the purple hair actually are the ones who actually committed the crime and also actually have the Hashirama cells? Because there were other teams actually looking for the Hashirama cells, it would not surprise me at all if, just like how the purple team was actually trailing Team 7, there could have possibly been some other teams that were trailing the purple team as well. But for Team 7 to get out of a certain circumstance just like this, I assume there is going to be a lot of shadow clones. There are going to be a lot of techniques to fool a lot of the people who are actually looking for Team 7. Now, one of the biggest factors that can actually contribute to Team 7's success and potentially getting out of the Land of Silence and also potentially retrieving the Hashirama cell, it has to be Mitsuki. At this particular point, we understand that Mitsuki is still back at the hospital, basically trying to give everybody the antibodies for the Hashirama cells. If he does actually come in late and scope out exactly what's happening, I think it could definitely be advantageous for Team 7 to also have Mitsuki come in to alleviate some of the pressure that right now is put on Boruto, Konohamaru, Sada, and Mujino. One of the things that is probably going to be clear in the next episode is that if Team 7 actually wanted to, they could probably escape the Land of Silence relatively easily. The problem is going to lie in the fact that they are actually trying to accomplish their own mission. They're actually trying to retrieve the Hashirama cells. Now, I do want to point this out. It's not necessarily their actual mission to retrieve the Hashirama cells. This is something that they pretty much added on to their original mission that they actually failed. They're just going to have to say, bump the Hashirama cells. We need to figure out how we're going to make this escape right now, and then potentially in a week or so come back and then hunt that same exact team down or find out where their actual village is, and then afterwards invade that village with a lot more people. Now, in my opinion, I think that would definitely be a very good idea, but because we're in the middle of the Kata actuation arc, of course this whole thing is probably not going to be surrounded around the Hashirama cells. We have to assume that this whole thing is probably going to be resolved in a matter of about 2 or 3 more episodes. Now, of course, I am sensitive to Team 7 being in actual danger right now. We understand that we don't necessarily want to make this harder for Team 7 than it already actually is, but this is also a very interesting time to see exactly what type of talent the Land of Silence actually has. We understand that a lot of them are going to be rogue ninjas, but also, are they going to be fodder rogue ninjas? Are some of them going to be actually good? Because as we know, rogue ninjas in part 1 of Naruto and part 2 of Naruto, they were extremely good. They were exceptional. When we talk about all the characters that was in the Akatsuki and also Zabuza and Haku, those characters were absolutely insane, and I definitely would not be surprised if some characters of that ilk can potentially be in the Land of Silence. Now, I do want to point out, characters that are usually that good aren't necessarily strapped for cash, so they don't necessarily jump for joy when there is a situation like this. But I also do want to point out the possibility, and also my intrigue, of Team 7 potentially having to escape from an extremely elite rogue ninja out there that's just looking for some extra cash. But I do want you guys to think about this episode in the comment section below. Give me some of your predictions about what you guys expect is going to happen. As I said, I think two things are going to be a virtue. Of course, it's going to be the shadow clone technique and also the transformation technique. The Hashirama cell is probably going to be the top priority, even though they're going to be hunted by the whole village still. And I think that right there is going to present a very cool dynamic of how they're actually going to complete this mission. But let me know what you guys think. It's been your boy Baara B, and we out.
It's a knife.